4 days into the new year, back to work for many, and already a degree of despondency has set in. Will this year be any different, or another 12 months of what really seems like the movie Groundhog Day? Chris Kemp is a clinical psychologist, a regular contributor to this program, and he's with me now on Monday lunchtime as we look at some basic early coping mechanisms for this year. Chris, good afternoon to you. For many people, the start of this new year is beyond onerous. We're still recovering from 2020. It's going to be difficult to get going into an element of routine again, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think you highlighted it yourself in terms of there being uncertainty. And I think that's what a lot of people are feeling anxious about coming into the year is it going to look like last year? Do we be hopeful? I think it's going to be different. Where do we find ourselves now?
So what do we have to do? Do we just dig deep and hope for the best, or are there ways of getting around this?
So I think it looks like we're staring down the barrel of working from home again, at least for a period moving forward. And I think my recommendation there is always to try and create some kind of separation between sort of what is your workspace and what is your home space. I think it's so important that you are able to step away from work. I think one of the challenges people had with working from home all the time was that they kind of were always in the office. They were always available. And so I always encourage people, have a place where psychologically when you get up from it, you are kind of leaving work. And I think that's really important because home needs to be your sanctuary. It needs to kind of be your safe space. And I feel like a lot of people felt like their work was coming into that space last year, particularly.
It's not only that. I hear this deep sigh all over the country as we talk about this, because if this is going to perpetuate, it's also feelings of continued isolation, which is not good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the funny thing about isolation is that the more we are isolated, the more we tend to isolate ourselves. And I think it's important that people take as much effort as possible to reach out to others, to connect with others. You know, we've all gone on with the digital connections and ways of connecting with family and friends. And I would encourage people to try and engage in that as much as possible, not sink back into that place of isolation that we found ourselves in last year.
And the other thing, Chris, it's also about the fear of economic survival, which this year, for many, might become more pronounced than last year.
Yeah, 100%. And there's obviously the problem with economic stuff is that there's only so much that you can do. You know, it's such a hard limitation. But what I always encourage people to do is to try and shrink things down to a micro scale, figure out ways that you can control things in your life on a day-to-day basis, because we know now that the macro scale of what happens during this year is unpredictable and outside of our control. So it's going to be important to try and narrow our focus to taking it kind of day by day and seeing what we can manage.
Chris Kemp is a clinical psychologist. Thank you very much indeed. Now,